All right, everybody, it's time to get very, very excited, especially if you may have a house to sell sometime in the near or medium term future, because we're going to talk about the listing agreement, the authorization and exclusive right to sell agreement used on the Alaska multiple listing service, pretty much all over South Central Alaska. This is what you're going to have to sign, and they're all quite similar, but what gets filled in the blanks varies quite a bit. So I'm going to share my screen, and here we're going to find the document itself. So it's only 3 pages long. There's a lot in that 3 pages. It's pretty dense, and always with a contract, you are signing a contract with a brokerage firm and with the agent being representative of that firm. So it is never a bad idea to consult with your own legal counsel. That's not always done. It's pretty rarely done. But I have to say that I am not a lawyer. I am a realtor. So I have these forms signed all the time, and I'm quite familiar with them, but cannot provide anyone legal advice. So anyway, here we're going to have some names, basically the seller's name, the brokerage's name, the licensee's name. That's often called the agent. Technically in Alaska, it's a licensee. These agreements have a commencing date and an expiration date. They're not open-ended. You need to give the realtor enough time realistically to get this sold, even if you think it's a hot market. It's going to take more than a month. If something goes wrong, if the pricing's a little off, or if the property is at all unusual, you're looking at many months, maybe a year. Part of the point of this agreement is to basically outline what is going to motivate this agent and this brokerage firm to work really, really hard to get your property sold. And what basically is going to provide that incentive is they need to know that they're going to somehow get paid if it sells. If there was a very thin chance of them ever making any income off of this arrangement, then you can imagine they're not going to put a whole lot into making that sale happen. Meanwhile, you as a consumer, you need to be able to potentially get out of the arrangement, have it end in case you're not satisfied with the service that you're getting. And then both sides need to know what the other is going to do in basically every scenario. That's really what a contract is. I had a really smart lawyer, real estate lawyer that I really respected once mentioned that the two parties need to have a meeting of the minds, and that's great. But the contract basically lays out all the details that everyone doesn't always think about in advance. And of course, if you don't have a meeting of the minds and you're just fundamentally not on the same page anymore, it doesn't matter what's in the contract. It's not going to work out very well between you. But a contract does help things to be clarified. So some important things right here, and I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of highlighting. Right here in this part. This explains in Alaska when the property is going to be marketed. Now, automatically, the realtors are required by the Alaska MLS to enter the information within 72 hours. So this is really more important to the realtor based on the rules that we have to follow to be members of the MLS than it is to the consumer. So when the property goes in there, it goes in automatically in coming soon status. And that means there's no pictures, and it doesn't go out to the public yet, to Zillow and all those websites. It's only on the MLS, so only the other real estate professionals can see it. But it can only stay in that status for 15 days. And the realtor will set the actual day when it's going to come out into active status with all the photos and everything and going out to all the websites. But it can't be more than 15 days. So if there's some reason that from when you sign this document, if you or maybe the realtor or the house itself is not going to be ready for the public marketing to happen until after 15 days, then you too have to sign a delayed marketing notice. And then you can put the date off to really whenever you both agree to. But there will be another form to sign. Then technically you can request the property not be placed in the MLS at all. Usually that's almost never in a seller's interest. If you want to get interest from as many buyers as possible to maximize the chance of the highest price, you do want it in the MLS, broadcast to everyone out there. Used to be that brokers would try to hide it and only show it to their own buyers for a little while, but that's not the way that it works anymore. Then if you do choose to not put it in the AKMLS database, you are then barred from putting them there for 6 months. So it's kind of a disadvantage if you want to sell the house anytime soon. This part right here, licensee relationships, I think I might make another video about this. It is so complicated, and it's really worth some thought on the consumer's part. But basically, this is you're stating here whether you want this realtor to represent only you, or you also want them to potentially represent a buyer who's purchasing your property and handle things for both sides. And either can work. There's some pros and cons to either system. So I'm going to talk about that in another video. You're going to have to pick a price. Of course, that price can change, and the contract should have some system for changing the price. With the seller's instructions, the price can change, and that's your choice as a seller. It's not the real estate agent's choice what the price is. There needs to be a system for compensation to the broker. Typically, it's a percentage of the sales price. Sometimes it's a flat fee, and then almost always the brokers that you're operating with will be splitting that fee with the side that represents the buyer. Typically, it ought to be half and half, but it actually can be whatever that brokerage chooses to offer. And then there are some terms in which you would actually have to pay that fee even if this agreement was expired. One of those is pretty obvious. If the property was under contract and then this agreement expired, the realtor would still manage that deal and you would still owe the fee. But then this one is pretty important here, and there'll be some figure here, maybe 180 days, sometimes a year. And this protects the broker from maybe unethical consumers who might try to get the cell phone number of one of the buyers and then just contact them separately after the showing. So if that broker procured the buyer, showed the property to them, establish their interest, and then this agreement expires, then you're still going to have to pay them for that. And then here at the end, it says if the property is withdrawn from sale, leased or rented without the consent of the broker, or made unmarketable by seller's act, then you may still owe the fee. So basically, you are really committing to get this house sold. Some brokers will provide some kind of an escape clause, like a fee that you can pay to escape the deal if you just change your mind. But again, the point of this is to make sure that firm is motivated to work to get your house sold, and it is a lot of work. If it is highly unlikely or very easy for you just to cancel the whole deal with them, then there's no way they're going to work too hard or spend too much money, and that's not in your interest at all as a consumer. This part is filled out once in a while in case that sometimes there's a referral company that is going to get a fee from the sale. That's not in addition to what you have to pay. It comes out of the fee paid to the brokerage, but they do have to disclose that to you. Down here, just a little bit of authorizations that the seller will have to allow mortgage and lien holders to provide broker with information about the property. It's the mortgage company, that's the biggest important one. All information that broker has will go to the AKMLS. So appraiser is basically the broker is acting as a facilitator of information here. And then the broker has leeway in terms of legally, in terms of this contract, about exactly how they're going to advertise, internet, newspapers, et cetera, et cetera. The Alaska Multiple Listing Service, that's the main way these properties get spread out to the world. And we brokers, or most of us, are all members of that. That's how the properties get out on Zillow and every single website. And the same information is available on all of them. It's a pretty brilliant system. And interestingly, I learned this relatively recently. It's unique to the United States. Most other countries have basically the same system we had 30 years ago, where the only way to find out about a property for sale is to go to the real estate agency that's selling it. So that's pretty hard for buyers. We here are in an environment where the buyers have a lot of information about everything that's out there. So the broker here in the United States is really a facilitator and really helping you as the seller to jump it one step above all the other houses for sale with better marketing and also with better negotiation. You're going to authorize the broker to put up a for sale sign and a key safe or lockbox so that other MLS subscribers can access the property. As most people know, most times the property will be shown when the buyer has their own agent by that agent, not by your agent, unless someone calls your agent directly because maybe they saw the sign or maybe they saw some of their advertising. And in those cases, your agent will do the showing. You as a consumer, you need to keep the property in good repair while this agreement is in place. You'll need to provide the State of Alaska Residential Real Property Transfer Disclosure Statement to cover yourself legally and to provide to the buyer. I made a video about that recently, and it's worth looking at. Let's see, and there is an equal housing law, fair housing law, that you as a seller are bound by, and brokers are also bound by that, so they can explain that more to you, but there are pretty heavy penalties for being found to not comply with those laws. It is a big deal. And then there's a little bit of sometimes deals have more specific terms that goes in here. There's some other addenda. For example, this is a short sale or a relocation situation. There's also an electronic lockbox addendum that I often add to these when I'm going to use the Alaska MLS Bluetooth lockboxes, which is what we usually use. And then there's signatures. Everyone agrees. And that's pretty much that. 3 pages. Every page gets initialed. That is the listing agreement. So like I said, the point of that is really to protect both sides and motivate both sides to do everything they can to get this property sold, to motivate the seller to keep it clean and in good repair, to provide all the disclosures, and probably more importantly, to motivate the listing agent and the brokerage firm to do everything they can to make sure that it sells, because that is how they get paid. So any questions, just shoot me a call or an email, whatever is convenient for you. Thanks for watching. And you can subscribe and watch more of these informational videos that I try to throw up here every week. Talk to you soon.